Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to our Great Books program at Ubiquity University, which is a required course for all of our students, because we want our students, caught up as we all are in the throes of modernity, to realize that at all times we're dwarfs standing on the shoulders of giants. And some of those giants lived a long time ago in a faraway galaxy, in different cultures. Some of the giants living today. And so that each month we really explore one of the great books or the great authors and more deeply understand not only the predicament with which human beings have to grapple wherever they are and whenever they are and whoever they are, but how some people rise above the contradictions with such extraordinary elegance and eloquence that reading their words, immersing oneself in the books that are left behind, elevates our soul. And we are deeply grateful for Andrew to join us for our second month looking at the great Indian poet Kabir, who was an alchemist of the spirit, was caught up in contradictions at the political, social, and historical level, not unlike our time today.
Oh, yes.
And therefore is a beacon to the kind of spiritual depth and openness that we need to embody as we move forward at this crucial time in human history. So Andrew, I want to welcome you back. We had a very strong discussion with Georgie and the students last month. I'll turn it over to you now to read a few poems and expound on the future of an evolution of human spirituality in the heart of Kabir. And then we'll have Georgie and I will kind of co-moderate and ask questions, and then we'll invite the students in at some point, and we'll deepen the dialogue. So Andrew, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. Look, we're in an evolutionary crisis. You hear that all the time. And by now it's almost become a cliche. But I want you to step back for a second, deep into yourself, into your deepest knowledge of yourself, and ask yourself the question, what is being born in me now? What is being erupted in me now from what I am living through? If you ask yourself that question, your perspective on what is happening will undergo a radical and ecstatic transformation, because you will come to know that we are in a crisis of mutation, a crisis not just of transformation, but of transfiguration, a crisis which is demanding at every level that we align ourselves with the sacred so as to be utterly possessed by it and used by it in the holiest way to transform apocalypse into grace. That means that the companions we now need are those who have into a dimension of embodied divine humanity, of being turned to gold, a dimension of engoldenment. This is the great secret of the mystical systems, and this secret has been known at the depths of all of the mystical systems and has been protected there. But now the whole field of human history is the dance of this great secret. And this secret was lived by Kabir. This secret of engoldenment, of being transfigured, was lived by this illiterate peasant weaver, Muslim, radical, revolutionary, in the filthy, dirty streets of Varanasi, of Benares, as it was called then, in the 15th century. He mutated, he became the humble, ecstatic, grounded, divine human. He went through into the next dimension that the whole human race now is being summoned to incarnate. And there are great clues in Kabir for all of us who know that this birth is taking place, clues that refine our practice, help us go deeper and deeper into love, into being possessed by love in mind, heart, soul, and body, so that we can be transformed into love's bodies, acting with golden joy and golden passion and golden compassion on every level, to work with the divine to build and create a new world. I spent 5 years of my life plunged into the ocean of truth that is Kabir, because I wanted to bring back for us at this moment of our mutation, the singly most majestic and most pure and clearest possible statement of this transfiguration process. And so I've chosen to read today 2 of the sublime poems of the divine human that you and I are now being ferociously mutated into. And this poem is a poem of the sacred marriage, the marriage that happens when God and love and truth possess mind, heart, soul, and body, and you merge with the entire universe, and the entire universe merges ecstatically with you. This is the marriage song of the divine human, the moment when the human being awakens to deathlessness living in every cell. So this is astounding beauty revealed to us at the moment when we need to be so transformed by beauty that we can continue to fight for this new birth with everything that we are. Here is Kabir. O holy woman, sing out the wedding song. I've come home with Lord Ram, the beloved of my heart. Body, mind, all 5 elements, all loved and offered in welcome. Ram has come to live with me, and I am drunk with boundless youth. My body a pool of Vedas, Brahma himself intones, united with Ram round and round. How blessed I am. Gods arrive in millions, sages arrive in thousands. Kabir says, I'm to marry, and my man's immortal. No one knows why he cries out to the holy woman at the beginning of that poem. It's been a mystery of Kabir studies that has exercised strange scholars in strange rooms for years. But for me, he calls out to the divine feminine as priestess of the ultimate revelation of the marriage, the ultimate revelation of being the embodied Godhead through the grace of the embodied Godhead. So it's the divine feminine that sings out the wedding song of heart and mind and soul and body, and transcendence and immanence and light and shadow. It is the feminine that announces this great ecstatic new truth. I've come home with Lord Ram. He has utterly loved the beloved as Ram, and the beloved as Ram has come to live in his mind and live in his heart and live in the depths of the cells of his body. And he knows He knows that he is the beloved living as Kabir. And he says what it costs, he says what it means, he says what it requires in these very holy lines. He says, and this is priceless information, he says, body, mind, all 5 elements, all loved and offered in welcome. There is no denial in Kabir. There's no burning down of desire and the body. There is an offering in rapture, in deep rapture of the whole body, of the whole mind, of the whole heart, to the source of rapture itself, to the unstained one, to the transcendent beloved. And in that offering of all the 5 elements and all the senses and the body and the mind, all loved and offered together in welcome to the source of all, Ram has come to live with me, to live in me, with me, as me, and I'm drunk with boundless youth. Because when this marriage of transcendence and immanence and human and divine and light and shadow emerges in the human being, what it gives the human being is direct revelation of the eternal dance of love in and as everything, the eternal springtime, and the energy, the passion energy, and the heart energy, and the love energy, and the mind energy of the eternal springtime. And as he says, united with Ram, round and round, united with the God source in my sitting, in my breathing, in my speaking, in my singing, round and round, mind, heart, soul, body, united, united, how blessed I am, and how blessed all beings are who have this as their destination. And what's so holy and amazing about this poem is that it describes the cosmic moment that we may as a whole human race be going towards, the cosmic moment of a massive birth of a new kind of human being on the planet. And at that moment, the whole universe will rejoice ecstatically, because a great dream has been fulfilled, just as it was fulfilled for Kabir when gods arrived in millions and sages in thousands to celebrate this astounding realization of God's dream for the human. I'm going to read it again, and then I thought I'd fling it out to you because I could read the other poem, but that poem is itself such a revelation and such a sign of fire for all of us now who know that in the middle of the horror and the chaos and the madness and the rending and the shattering and the falling apart of everything, there is an intelligence dancing that is creating a new kind of human being, humbled, broken open by tragedy, ecstatic because grounded in essential being, and pouring himself or herself out as a dance of opposites to celebrate the great dance and birth a new humanity. And those of us who are trying to do this work have in Kabir our great sacred dance leader, someone who is giving us the real skinny on what it means and what the glory that arrives through grace feels like and is like. So I wanted to fling that out to my buddies and see how you relate to it.
Well, you know, I think we're all so distracted in our lives that hearing a human being who was so caught up in the exquisiteness of the moment and so infused with the rapture of oneness seems almost incredible, given the fact that we deal with reality in nanoseconds and sound bites and commercials and fake news and mass consumerism and distractions of distractions of distractions, as T.S. Eliot puts it. So it was like a balm listening to the poetry. And I wonder, Andrew, if you had to speak to how Kabir can inform the evolution of spirituality in this moment, as we weave our way through all kinds of distractions, what would be your comment as to the unique quality that Kabir offers that may not be as easily accessed in other great mystics and poets?
It's a beautiful question. I think the real response is that Kabir is totally naked and totally direct. What he's saying to all of us at this moment is that you have a choice every single moment. You can go into the chaos of distraction, or you can say the name of God right now in the core of yourself and align yourself through that saying of the name with the transcendent beloved. And if you train your sacred attention, the attention of your consciousness, ruthlessly on that source will reveal itself to you and teach you directly, nakedly, what it is and what you are. This is not a Hindu transmission. This is not a Sufi transmission. This is a transmission of universal consciousness. And above that, he's also saying that if you do this simple act, and Kabir gave no other practice but this. He said, if you do this simple act of turning to the name of God by whatever name you love the source, if you do this simple act with every thought, with every movement of emotion, what will happen to you will completely astound you, because you start to think with a new majesty and truth. You'll start to feel with the depth of passion you never imagined. And you also feel new energies being released in your body, energies of bliss and ecstasy and power and concentration and passion. And this will be your entry into the birthing process that is the authentic movement of God in us, the birthing of a new kind of human being, conscious of divine identity and humble in human unity with all other human and sentient beings.
Georgie, did you want to jump in and make a comment or question?
Yeah, just can't wait. Thank you so much, Andrew. It's always a pleasure listening to you. There is all, actually, when I was listening to your words, there's one thing came to me, is you just so exquisite, really, the way you deliver your message and how you talk about, whether be that Rumi or Kabir or anything. But I'd like to really segue back to your first question, which was what is being born now? And straight away I said, it is me, because I found myself in every single poem. And Kabir, and the way you translated him, he's so raw, he's so blunt, he's none of the kind of like flowery language,
Oh,
and
God,
it's
no.
right there in your face.
No.
So when you were saying that he's demanding transformation on every level, but I think the transformation starts with me first. I can't demand it.
Yes, it starts with us turning up naked with truth.
Yeah, so how did Kabir transform you? Personal questions. I have many more personal questions.
Well, I think Kabir transformed me, continues to transform me in three ways. The first way in which he transformed me is that he constantly challenges me to be direct and naked about my own realization, because he's saying to every human being, you are divine. Stop giving your power away. Claim your divine identity. So he is constantly saying in me, claim your divine consciousness and radiate what you know from where you know it right now. The second thing that Kabir has really made clear to me in the most primordial way is the absolute bankruptcy of the religions at this moment and most of the mystical systems that don't honor the divine feminine and the embodiment process. That we're not here just to have transcendent experiences, we're here to embody consciously the transcendent and eventually to be born as divine human beings, radiating that force in loving, wild, holy, calm, compassionate action. That is the birth that's trying to take place. So he's made that birth very much more clear to me and in me. And the third way in which he's been absolutely ferociously transformative is that he's the greatest single advocate of animal rights in human mystical history. There's no other mystic, not even St. Francis, who loved animals, who stands up like Kabir and says to humanity, you cannot go on in a genocide of the animals. You cannot go on slaughtering 59 billion animals for your table. You cannot go on killing the species so that the lions will be gone in 15 years and the elephants in 20 years. There's a sacred outrage at the merciless, horrific, ruthless destruction of the animals in Kabir that really mobilized my heart. And in fact, I followed up this book on Kabir, the Turn Me to Gold, with a book I've just finished with Carolyn Baker, which is a book called Saving Animals from Ourselves, which is a book about how to face up to the horror of what we're doing and be transformed so deeply by a vision, like the vision that Kabir has of the sacredness of everything, that we plunge into doing whatever we can to restitute this appalling situation. So Kabir hasn't just crystallized me, he's also put me into action. He's made me really want to confront the central agony of my life, which is really the agony of what we're doing to animals. And I don't think I would have been strong enough to go through the process of the last 3 years in which I wrote this book with Carolyn without Kabir's massive help and strength, because facing animal suffering is probably the hardest thing that a human being can do. Children is terrible enough, but facing the abominable cruelty that we visit on innocent animals is really demands a grounding in deathless consciousness, because you simply can't stand it if you don't have that.
And I would add the destruction we commit against nature as well, because we know that nature has not just animals, but plants and trees and flowers. They have a certain degree of consciousness, right? So they can feel and communicate.
And not just certain degree. I mean, one of the things that I go into, inspired by Kabir actually, is into the great new discoveries of animal consciousness that scientists are opening up. We're at an age in which what's happening in the discovery of animal consciousness mirrors what's happening in quantum physics. It's a revolution. Yeah. To understand wholly new levels of awareness. Kabir knew this, and I couldn't believe what I was reading when I was reading Kabir on animals, because it helped me claim my own vision of what my animals have taught me and what the shamanic tradition has taught me. So I have to say Kabir has changed everything and continues to change everything for me, because when you work like this on someone, it's a marriage that takes place. You're making love with your mind, your heart, all the forces of your body. You're taking that being into the depth of your own experience of reality, and you're asking that being who you know to be further on from you to take you far enough in the ocean that he or she is, so that you can truly communicate what needs to be communicated. So it's an extraordinary relationship. It's not in time, it's not in space, but it's very much in time, it's very much in space, it's very much in the body. It's what the Catholics call the communion of saints, and it's something that really needs to be brought back, this sacred ecstatic relationship with the great mystics of the past. They're up for it, they're here, they're longing to commune like this. If you can just open up, you'll find them right by your side, infusing and informing you. This is astonishing, but it's true.
I know that last time we were talking about the process, how you were translating Kabir's poems, and that marriage you actually talk about. I'd like to still kind of like go a little bit deeper, because this marriage is so important between Kabir and yourself. And did you find any of his poems that you were wrestling with? Did you feel something that was not really merging, that was not really flowing in terms of understanding his meaning through his poem? And did he ever appear in your dreams?
That's such a wonderful question. Look, there is a whole set of Kabir poems that are like the Japanese Zen poems, totally strange, riddling, weird, anarchic, nihilistic. And they are not the poems that I concentrated on, because they are ultimate koans for evolutionary special forces. They're not poems that he intended for the real world. They're the poems that crack open seekers at a very high level of realization. So I didn't work with those. Then there were poems where he was so ferocious about the world, so dismissive of all of the horrors and madnesses of this world, that I felt that there was sometimes a hysteria and extremity of rage against the world. But that actually changed, because as I understood more and more of the severity of his vision, I understood that that rigor that he was exploding in those poems was important. But I chose, on the whole, to bring in poems that were filled with visionary ecstasy and possibility. There are enough poems that show Kabir's severity and rigor and enormous majesty in this selection, but I really wanted the softer, tender, and more ecstatic, more grateful, more adoring side of Kabir to be there too, because both have to be present in their fullest. Mm-hmm. The most extreme difficulties came sometimes when I was dealing with his vision of the divine as the no thing. Fundamentally, Kabir wants to get rid of everything but the no thing, wants us to concentrate with total passion on utter transcendence, because he knows that to be the source. And initially, that frightened me, and also I was revolted by it, because there was a part of me that says the embodied Godhead is just as important. But as I grew myself, I came to begin to glimpse the truth of what Kabir was saying, that there is an experience in which you're blinded by light, so that only darkness is, only mystery is. And this is the gateway into unutterable adoration and reverence for the inexplicable, for the unknowable. And that has happened through Kabir's grace to me, just the fringes of it. And so now, when I came to actually do the collection of the book, I included poems that I hadn't wanted to include, because Kabir had opened up that avenue for me to understand at a deeper level why he made that the primordial experience. Mm. What came was very exciting, and the ultimate marriage of opposites. And that's enshrined in the book now, and that is that the transfiguration process, the transfiguration of the human into the divine human, in mind, heart, soul, and cellular structure, paradoxically happens by the human beings turning towards the utterly transcendent, the unknown, because it has to be the total opposite that then gets embodied through adoration, through longing. This is an amazing secret. And if I hadn't had Kabir there to continually thrust me forward, I might have stopped short and not understood how profound that marriage is. But he exploded me into it, the fringes of it, so that I could truly bring what I hope is a comprehensive and glorious musical symphony of his vision to the world at this moment.
Oh, it is a symphony, and you're very fortunate that you are married to so many, to Rumi, to Kabir.
Not so many. You can't have many in that, but certainly Rumi for 40 years and Jesus and Kabir. Those are the three that are my beloveds, because they're very interconnected.
Yeah.
For me, they are all one person. They are the sublime warriors of divine passion in action. And they speak with different voices, but they're the same archetype being born. It's the divine rebel at his or her most resplendent. For me, they're men because that's what I'm trying to model as a man, but I could also include in that Mary Magdalene, for example. I could include in that the mother herself, Mary, the Black Madonna. So these are the archetypes that mean the most to me, and I think are the forefront of the evolutionary shift that we're being called to. And Kabir is the ultimate warrior, king, lover, servant archetype, that the truth itself speaking nakedly without any apology to wake us up, to beat us down, but also to resurrect us. This is an astounding revelation that he is.
Thank you. I actually have, if Jim allows me, a few more minutes with you, please. I know that last time we went through a couple of poems, and what transpired to me reading through the book again, that Kabir's message is so timeless, isn't it?
It's so timeless. It's always, there is no time in Kabir's message.
No, nothing at all. So would you please turn to page 4?
Page 4.
And would you please read just that page for us? And then I'd like to have a couple of questions, please.
Oh, I would love that. This is, in a way, his most radical poem. There are a lot to choose from, but this is the foundation of his ferocious radicalism. Wherever you go looking for me, I'm already always by your side. I'm not in sacred places. I'm not in temple idols. I'm not in solitary retreats. I'm already always by your side. I'm not in temples or mosques. I'm not in the Kaaba, not in Kailash. I'm already always by your side. I'm not in austerities. I'm not in meditation, not in fasts, not in feasts, not in rituals laid down in sacred texts, not in yogic exercises. Look for me with passionate sincerity. I'll be beside you immediately. Kabir says, seeker, listen to me. Where your deepest faith is, I am.
Thank you. Wow. So my question, obviously,
that detonates spiritual history. That says, that blows up all of the religions. That blows up all of the pretensions of the boys' club to, in any way, interfere with the direct connection of soul to God, the direct connection that we're born with. It is a declaration of independence in the divine that signals the birth of a new humanity. That's what that poem is.
Exactly. And that he says that you don't need to go to a mosque, you don't need to go to a church. I am always there and everywhere. This is where his message is so timeless, isn't it?
Yes, and it's so radical because it really says the whole of religious history has been a costume party. What the hell are you doing inventing these fantasy religions when there is a clear path of direct connection which leads to the divinization of the human? Get over the religions, they're power games, they're just playing at God. Get with God in the naked direct connection, have the transformation, radiate human divinity, join the club of the engolden ones, because it's the only club worth joining.
Exactly.
Right. He's totally radical. There's
Yeah,
nobody who said this in quite this way for humanity. I love it. It's the
yeah,
truth.
yeah. But you know, someone could read actually that poem and think about, oh, you know, is he actually saying that one shouldn't really go to pray to a mosque or a church or something? So he's radical.
Not saying that. He's trying to wake you up to something so immense. He's first of all tearing everything down. This is how Kabir works. He comes in with a sword, he slashes everything to pieces. And he does so not to incinerate for the pleasure of it. He does so to get you off your drugs, to unhook the addiction. So you stop playing small. You stop playing Christian or Buddhist or Hindu or whatever tidy little schema you have for your evolution. And you start being naked before the majesty, and you get into radical adoration, and you start doing the real work. Then when you're doing the real work, when you're in the presence all the time, you can go into any temple and mosque and love the beloved there passionately, but you can love the beloved just as passionately in a cafe or by the side of the street, crossing the street, or looking into your dirty face in a dirty puddle, because the beloved is exploding everywhere.
Thank you. Now, my dear Andrew, please turn to page 28. This is actually, well, I have plenty favorites, but this one is definitely the one I would like you to read.
Oh, this is a terrible one, isn't it? I love this one, and I love this is the one on the weaver.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh God, this is such an important poem because, well, Kabir was a weaver and remained a weaver. He weaved all his life. And, you know, once late in the night in Benares, I was walking down the streets of the old part, and I came across an old weaver just weaving with a night lamp. And I stood there in the dark and watched him. And that for me was Kabir, that nobility, that patience, that understanding of the mystery of the universe as being a mystery of weaving of opposites by an unfathomable intelligence. Mm-hmm. This is his poem about that. He was experiencing it himself. Who could ever know the secret of the weaver? He spread the universe as his warp. He fixed earth and sky as pillars, used sun and moon as shuttles, and then he took thousands of stars and made the cloth perfect. He goes on and on weaving. To what end? No one knows. Kabir says, whether with good string or strong dye darkened by karma, the weaver weaves sublimely.
Just stunning, stunning image. I love the image about the sun and the moon and the pillars and the shuttles. And he's saying that life goes on and you're not in control.
You're not in any control. This is not your game. The weaver is weaving. The great sublime intelligence of love is weaving everything in the beauty and in the horror. And what Kabir is saying is, your one hope is to kneel in adoration before the mystery of the weaver and fall in love with the weaver, so the weaver can appear in you as radiant detachment and compassion. And you can watch the weaving and be part of the weaving without being identified with what is woven completely, so that you always savor your deathlessness, your divine reality. This is the ultimate training for any mystical adept, loving the weaver so that the weaver can reveal the weaver inside you and help you dance with your own weaving, with the weaving. This is what Kabir is inviting us to. This is the new human.
Mm. Thank you. There's the last poem for now. It is on page 82. The first one on the left side, please.
I love that you've got this all arranged for me. This is so lovely. You're always hired, Georgie. I will just have you flown in my private Kabir jet. It's called the Kabir.
Cool.
It's red, and it, of course, was designed by the same person that designed Donald Trump's plane, because I thought somebody else should have such an exciting plane, and why shouldn't you? Not that he would have given a damn. One of the most amazing things about Kabir was that he lived a completely simple life, and he resolutely stuck to that, and he uses the simplest imagery to make the most incandescent truths vibrant. Here is this poem. Think deeply, feel deeply every image, and you'll get into Kabir's wild, gorgeous heart. He says, of this body, I'll make a lamp, and of my soul, burning with longing, a wick. For oil, I'll fill the lamp with my tears of blood, and by its light, I'll see the face of my beloved. A more ruthless and more exalted poem you couldn't find. Ruthless because he doesn't say what a New Age poet would say, and for oil I'll fill the lamp with my tears of bliss. That's the New Age version of the path. He says, I'm going to fill my lamp of a body with the tears of agony that love has made me weep. The tears of outrage, the tears of anguish at horror, the tears of absolutely heartbroken compassion, the tears of burning, burning longing to be one with the one. Those tears, the tears of blood that Jesus shed in Gethsemane, those tears of blood, those tears are the oil for the transfiguration process. Because one of the things that Kabir faces absolutely nakedly and squarely, which is why he is so important for us now, is that the transfiguration process is not simply turning yourself into love over a weekend. It is being battered by the shadow. It is being excruciated by the shadow also. It's facing the full onslaught of the dark in you and around you and being shattered by it so that you can be exposed to the source of the opposites beyond and behind, even so deep a shattering and through so deep a shattering. And by its light, by the light that dawns when I've had the guts to pour my tears of blood into the depth of my whole being and light it with longing, when I've had that gut, by that light, I'll see the face of my beloved. I'll see the whole universe burning softly in divine light. I'll see the one in the many and as the many and beyond the many. I'll see it. I will. And you will. That's what he's saying.
Thank you. Thank you. I must say that when I reread this poem again and again, I was speechless at first, and then it brought tears to my eyes. And thank you for giving Kabir to us, and through Kabir.
Thank you for loving that poem, because I think, I don't know, but I suspect the line you love is the tears of blood line.
Mm-hmm. All lines.
It's such an amazing poem, because Inauthentic Mistakes talk about love in a sentimental way. But authentic mystics know that love is savage and terrible as well, and will drag you across broken glass to peel illusion off you. And that is love's way, and that is when you really accept it or begin to a source of endless amazement and reverence, just astonishment. And I think that's why Kabir is so important, because we're in a period in which we're all being dragged across broken glass. And we're being peeled and shredded and broken. And if we can remember in the core of ourselves where this process is going through listening and receiving from the depths of ourselves where Kabir lives, the truth of this evolutionary process. And if we can remember that even in the midst of absolute madness, there is a presence which is unwavering, and turn to that presence, then horror can be the birthing canal of a very extraordinary new embodied divine humanity. That's the gamble we're all gambling on. We must now, and we must give everything we have to that, because it's our one last best hope.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I think Kabir is reminding ourselves who we are really, and then
Yes.
what the meaning of life is, and who we are in this big cosmic weaving.
Yes,
So,
and how amazing this is too. It's not, I mean, Kabir is very ferocious, obviously sometimes, and who we are is very frightening and painful and weird and dangerous and despotic and crazy and shadow-ridden. That's one side. But the other side that's in Kabir so radiantly is who we are is nothing less than a hologram of the divine. The whole divine lives in our bodies. The whole divine explodes out of our sacred hearts. The whole divine can infuse and inform a renovated sacred consciousness. This is an amazing vision. But you have to travel through the death of the illusions to get to the raw glory of the reality. And that is the process that we're living through as a species at the moment. And it's the process that we need a guide who's been through the whole process to guide us through, and that's Kabir.
yeah. Thank you, dear Andrew. Now I hand it back to Jim and to our audience. Thank you so much.
My great pleasure, darling. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgie. Thank you, Andrew. You know, I've been listening to a lot of lectures by Nassim Haramein, who is coming up with a whole new understanding of the cosmos from the point of view of a unified field theory. And when you were talking about the weaver, Andrew, I was thinking about his notion that every microsecond we're in a fluctuation that's happening so fast that we don't notice it in observable reality, but we're going in and out of the vacuum.
Death, rebirth is literally instantaneous, isn't it?
Everything that we are is going into the totality, linking with the whole, coming back out in our separateness, informed by the whole, and then whatever it is that we are and we do and think and say, every action then is brought back into the larger whole.
Yes.
I mean, it's an extraordinary notion of cosmic oneness, cosmic weaving.
Yes. Oneness is total reciprocity. Yes.
Yeah.
Quantum field activated by intention. It changes everything potentially if we can truly marry that way of acting to a purified ego.
Yes, yes. So thank you. I'm going to turn to some of the students now.
What does it mean to you, what I've been saying? Does it resonate with you, Jim, what that Kabir is saying?
I think I'm a long way. I have a long way to go. I am in my life right now caught up in I would say the agony and the ecstasy of the material world, trying to bring ubiquity into being. And where I am, as Georgie and the staff know, that we're coming into a closure within the next literally few days.
Oh my God. Oh.
Where everything that we've been building for the last 15 years since I came into the University of Creation Spirituality way back in 2004 is coming to a certain fruition, and how I refract Kabir is not so much horizontally between me and the totality of the universe. I understand that intellectually, but I haven't experienced it existentially yet. But what I do feel as I look back is how every moment and everything that I've experienced and all the relationships and all the motivations and the rivers of blood, as it were, that have ripped me asunder, as you know,
Yes.
many, many times.
Yes.
And almost always as a result of my own stupidity. And I think
that
that's...
seems to be the name of the game. I know, my God, oh God.
But you can see as you come into like I look back over 15 years, I can see how everything has been, with all the contradictions, it has been coming together with a logic and an intent that has not been my own. And the way I've refracted it is like with Rilke, that the future has broken through me.
Right.
That's the, in some ways, the crucifixions. You are led into areas you would never have thought of, but because something is, the future comes through us out of the past, in my experience.
Yeah.
So when Kabir talks about the rapturous totality, I see it as sort of as a vertical vector back, and I long for the day when I experience it equally intensely at the horizontal and feel that oneness with cosmos itself. That's still an intellectual construct to me, but I think I'm sneaking up on it.
Sneak up, maybe. No, I think we're all sneaking up. I have to say, I don't think anybody knows this process. I think that we're all experimenting, and I think we're all failing and experimenting. And I think failure is so important because it teaches you what not to do. And it's not, in my experience, the failure is not judged. You're not condemned for failing at such an impossible task.
Yeah.
The divine knows how incredibly difficult it is for all of us to be alive at this moment, and for us to be embarking on a transfiguration adventure in the middle of a dark night of these proportions. I think the divine is pretty impressed by that level of courageous lunacy. So with an immense amount of compassion is flowing towards us.
Totally.
And we're not meant to, I think it's so important not to claim to know the process, not to claim to be succeeding with the process, but to be,
at least for me,
with others in this process together, humbly sharing what we're learning, and mostly through our failures. That's what I've come to.
Yeah.
And I think it's wonderfully freeing, isn't it? Because who the hell do we think we are? No, really. It's amazing how vain human beings are, if you give them a chance, how vain we all are. In face of the majesty this profound and this unknowable, what relationship could we possibly have except of humility and adoration?
Well, I think that's part of the beauty of our wisdom school, is the fact that our foundation is really around the Socratic notion that it is truth pursued, not truth possessed.
Yes.
The willingness to be broken again and again by...
Best of all, to be possessed by truth, and truth will do the breaking open, won't it?
Yeah, it's exactly right. Exactly right. So,
It'll drag you through everything until you face it naked and either incinerate or transform or both. Yes.
Okay, well, listen, let's turn to our students. We have quite a list here. And I'd like for the students to raise their hands and jump in here. Let's go with Raffaello. Welcome, and then we'll have Dave McQuarrie and then Laura Madsen.
Great.
Okay, so just making sure that you can hear me first.
There he is. Hi, Raffaello.
Hello, hello, Raffaello. Hello. Nice
Hello.
to see you.
Nice to see you too. I'm so happy that I made it. It's a bit late at night. I'm in Indonesia, but
My God, you lucky thing. Indonesia is so beautiful, isn't it?
yes. So thank you so much, Andrew. I love this seminar. I love studying Kabir together with you and through you. And I have two questions. So the first one is just about a couple of times where you, I think it was in the previous seminar, you used the term magical thinking to refer to one of, some of the ways that we can distract ourselves and not basically face reality, or this is how I understood it anyway. So I wanted to ask you if you could elaborate a little bit more on that. And because my understanding of magical thinking was the belief that my ideas can actually influence the world in some way. And I hold that to be true, actually. So I wanted to hear your comments on that.
Well, thank you for that wonderful question. The greatest danger of magical thinking is in the mystical path itself, because as you grow in consciousness, all kinds of amazing powers come to you. You can see in a different way. You can motivate people in a different way. Your creativity is immeasurably expanded. And the most dangerous form of magical thinking is to think that you are God before you've been systematically torn apart to become one with the divine. But you cannot become one with the divine authentically without going through a crucifixion process, a death process, which is known as the dark night of the soul. And the fundamental mistake of modern mysticism has been to believe that transfiguration could happen without the dark night of the soul. And that is the root of all magical thinking. Because what that exposes is an addiction to the ego that goes very deep in spirituality. You are able to influence events by your mind, Raffaello, because you're in a quantum reciprocal universe. But you are also responsible for the quality and intensity and the high vibration of your consciousness, because if you're sending out messages of greed and power and domination, reality will reflect that back to you, but you'll be trapped in the web of your own karmic ignorance. And what magical thinking in the New Age has not made any distinction between is between those embodied thoughts that come from a rackety, neurotic, vulnerable, power-crazed ego, and those thoughts that radiate from an enlightened consciousness, right? So if you're playing around with thoughts that radiate from an unenlightened consciousness and they start manifesting, what you're really doing is enacting a form of black magic. You're playing with reality to satisfy your desires, which has absolutely nothing to do with the true mystical transformation, which is the sacrifice of your personal agenda to be used by the divine beloved in whatever way the divine beloved wants. You see?
I do. Thank you, Andrew. And that kind of also answered to some extent my second question, which was basically on how ethics or morals or right action can be born out of a non-dualistic view like Kabir's, because he says it's an offense to God to praise some and to slash others with swords. So then the question comes, all right, so where is the discernment of good and bad, and how, can that become a bypass to just say, yeah, everything is perfect, so therefore...
Because Kabir is not saying that. I mean, Kabir is incredibly radical, as you probably know from reading the poems. Kabir slashes at the Muslims. He says, you're crazy, you're just playing games. He slashes the Hindus. He rages against those who are hurting animals. He intervenes in the most radical imaginable way in his culture, because he knows that authentic non-dual truth is a blinding light that exposes all injustices and all deep power games. And with that blinding light trained on the religions, trained on the hierarchies, trained on the caste system, trained on our treatment of animals, Kabir stands up as a revolutionary, proclaiming the direct connection and the birth of a new humanity and the end of these religions and the end of slaughtering animals and the beginning of living a sacred, embodied, divine human life on the earth. That is what he's saying. And that's, you can perfectly well have a very rich, profound, deep, non-dual realization and be the most ferocious radical. In fact, that was what Jesus was, and that's what Kabir is. The deepest non-dual realization leads to the most radical, rebellious possible stance against injustice, not an acceptance of it.
Thank you.
Because it's revealed as an illusion, as a horrific illusion. You see?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I mean, thank you for putting it so beautifully. And I had, you know, a glimpse of that in my heart already, but it's very helpful to hear you.
You see, because you've come to that, you said it. The idea that non-dual consciousness is just awareness is an insane idea. It's a very limited version of non-dual consciousness. Non-dual consciousness is at once total, peaceful, expanded awareness with the most burning, ecstatic, tender, blissful, loving consciousness. It's heart and mind fused together. So that love that is born in non-dual consciousness cannot not act when it's inspired to. How could it? How could the creation exist without that spontaneous acting out of love's deepest impulses? That's what's said in the Hadith when Allah says, I was lonely and I longed to be loved, and that is why I created the worlds, right? Out of that hunger to be loved, the worlds were created. So that love is at the core of non-dual consciousness, and that love is active by its essence. It's burning in compassion. So how would it not spill over into words of compassion, acts of justice in the service of compassion?
Great, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Dave McQuarrie. David, welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I
Okay.
can see you too.
Yeah. Hi, Andrew. Hi, Jim.
Lovely to see you.
The raising of my hand actually was accidental. I was taking notes, and when I came back to the Zoom screen, I flipped the raised hand, and but I decided to trust it as the synchronicity of the universe.
Of course.
As you know, I'm completing or at least you, Jim, know, I'm completing a 2-year program in Christian contemplative practice with the Center for Action and Contemplation. And as part of that, I've just finished a 50-page description of my own life. So I have the advantage of taking the simplicity of Kabir and reflecting on how it has translated through my life. And really, there's absolutely nothing that is not consistent with what Kabir is saying. You know, like Jim, I'm somewhat caught up in the insanity of our culture and how to respond to it. But I'm also very much at age 76, I'm at a place of really deep peace with the roller coaster of my life. And, you know, one of the statements that came to me as I was keeping notes was the sign of God is that you will be led where you did not intend to go.
Yes, That's St. John, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah. So that's really all that I have to say, and you know, trust that might be valuable to people. That I would deeply encourage people to live their own, to seek out and live their own truths. That's probably the biggest message of my own life.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That was a very Kabir-like message. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Laura.
There you are, Laura.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, so wonderful.
Lovely to see you.
Yeah, it's lovely to hear your words and to see all of you. I find that I'm the feminine keeps coming up in my work, in my I'm writing poems, I'm having dreams. I went to hear Mirabai Starr Friday night. She was here in Vancouver with a few friends. Yeah, beautiful, because she's, as you know, like the women, mystic women, and very dedicated to that. And the mood she set, this was a small gathering in our Banyan bookstore, and small.
Yes, I know Banyan. Yeah, wonderful bookstore. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
it's great. So we're at, you know, at the far end. There's about 50 of us, maybe 2 men, maybe 3 at the most. And so the questions at the end, it was very interesting. She wanted us to be very precise, and you know, and people were. And then I noticed what was interesting to me is there began to be a mood that I could feel. There was a resonant field where something felt like it was opening in the collective. I'm very interested in group work and how this can happen. It's kind of been mentioned already in the talk. And so I was aware of this starting to happen. And then because this one man raised his hand, I think she felt she, you know, should give him a voice, but he did exactly what she asked not to do. He sort of went into this soliloquy and kind of went off on a bit of a tangent about how can there be any good news when we've got leaders like Trump and Putin and all this stuff happening. And she said, well, it is happening. It's happening right now, right here. You know, and so her recognition of that feminine, and I could feel something in myself. It was like the cells in my body were
expanded, huh?
Expanded, yes. And then I had a beautiful dream that night where it was like literally a goddess took interest in me in the dream, and she showed me with her husband standing beside her silently, but there was obviously rich soil between them. And she laughingly showed me where they'd made their mistakes.
Mm.
And it was so generous, like there was so much abundance. And that was like taking that what I was feeling in that gathering and then kind of opened it right up in this dream field that I was in. And I really felt that the dream was like an initiation or something. I felt like I'd been cleansed.
Yes, and claimed.
And claimed, exactly. Maybe they're the same sides of the same coin.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, just like, yeah, it felt very like a blessing. And yeah, that was just on Friday night. So when you mention the feminine, and I feel there's so much of the feminine in Kabir, in his deep.
How could there not be? There is.
Yeah, just a profound container for all the horror that is with us. So I just.
Well, also because Kabir fully explores his own feminine, because he takes a feminine mystic position with the one masculine, the one itself. So he is totally abandoned in the depths of himself to the feminine in him, in love with the transcendent one.
Right.
And then he's in love with the embodied Godhead, as he says, you know, my father is the transcendent absolute, and my mother is the embodied Godhead, and I am their divine child, dancing for them both on their burning dance floor. He's saying, my father's the light and my mother's the creation, and I'm in love with them both. I'm created out of them both. I'm them both, dancing for them both. This is a huge celebration of the feminine. And then he writes poems in the voice of a woman, crying out for his husband, his profound beloved. So any mystic who's been taken into this dimension has gone beyond sexuality into primordial sexuality, into the primordial sexuality of the soul's longing for oneness with the one.
Beautiful. Yeah, I feel that's the gateway, Andrew, for like that. For me, it feels like I'm being shown that the feminine is the gateway through something where my longing, it's like the portal for my longing seems to be through the feminine.
It's the portal, it's the expression, it's the embodiment, it's everything. The feminine is longing and adoration.
Right.
And hunger for union and hunger to lavish compassion and beauty on the world through the depths of one's own sacred emotion.
Right.
That's the thing.
Yeah, and the beauty, the breaking apart, that seems to be such a theme, you know, in your poetry and in your work in general. And I feel that was even what at that talk, what I began to sense on a cellular level was like a breaking. It didn't feel like I was being smashed, like broken, like it didn't feel like blood necessarily.
It doesn't have to be smashed. It can be expanded. It can be strung out over the whole universe deliciously. It doesn't always work through smashing, but smashing is one of the ways it works.
Right.
So don't be surprised if it does smash a bit, but it's also, it can expand and birth you in amazing ways as well. It does both. The sword and the rose together, this is the alchemy. Contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion.
Right. Yeah, I have felt the smash, before in my life for sure, and I feel like that maybe it's called faith that allows the smash to do its smashing in a way. There's sort of a faith
it's love. It's you love the mystery that's doing this to you.
Yes.
When love kills you, you still go on loving love that's killing you, and then love will rebirth you. That's how the madness of it, right?
That's so beautiful.
That's why the Muslims say, I take refuge from Allah in Allah. Yeah, because you're taking refuge from love in love itself. Love itself is doing this work of smashing. Right. But you never give up loving love, so love can reveal how it's working in you, through you. And then amazing miracles dance and dazzling recognitions flourish.
Yes. Oh, so beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you.
Your contribution, Laura, reminded me of a story associated with the patriarch Jacob in the Old Testament. Remember the story of where he came to a place called Bethel and put a stone formation together to honor Yahweh. And that night, an angel came to him. And it is said that Jacob and the angel wrestled together all night.
Yes.
And I've often thought, what would it be like to wrestle with an angel? Not to be devastated by the angel, but literally to wrestle with an angel for like 6, 7, 8 hours. What an erotic experience that must have been. And then when the dawn rose and the angel went to leave, the angel just touched Jacob on his hip, and he walked with a limp for the rest of his life. But it was that moment that the angel said, you shall no longer be called Jacob, you shall be called Israel.
Right. So amazing, isn't it?
And so I really appreciated that in your comment, Andrew. Sometimes you're blasted. And sometimes you wrestle with the angel all night. Sometimes you can pursue the truth your entire lifetime and it doesn't come until your deathbed.
Right.
Other times you can get it in a flash of epiphany, you know, at a very young age. And living into that mystery is certainly the dance. And you were clearly in the dance, Laura. So I just want to acknowledge it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, listen, are there any other contributions, any other questions that anybody wants to make? We have John, Jeanette, and Vivian Folk. We'll just take these two, and then we'll close it out. John, why don't you go first? But thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
John. Yeah.
Hi, John.
Hello, and good morning.
Good
For
morning.
me, anyway. There's a thread. I'm so appreciative of the book and this webinar. There's a thread that keeps jumping out at me from both the poems and what you've talked about. And I would just like to make a couple of observations about it and then have you expand on it if you'd like. It's not a question really, just an observation. And it's about action that we either take toward transcendence or willfully away. So here are just some scribbles. Turn toward transcendence. Make a lamp. Turn to the presence. Or who turns willfully his face from the truth. So the book is open to Kabir bringing a cup of light and people still choosing to drink from broken drains. That there's a choice there. Not only the choice to go toward transcendence, but sometimes willfully the choice to turn away from the cup of light. So in the end, Kabir can only do so much for us. You can only do so much for us.
Absolutely.
And I wondered if you could speak to that a little bit. Thank you.
Well, the tragedy of awakening is that you cannot awaken others. You can point to the moon and you can hope that your example is exciting and inspiring and passionate and ennobling enough to get them to do the work where they discover what you've discovered. This is the law. And this law is one of the major quarrels that I'm going to have with the Divine Beloved when I get up to the next level, because this is the mystery. What Kabir can do, though, is to do what he does, which is to tell the truth at the very highest levels in the very most uncompromising and gorgeous way imaginable, so that people will know that they are being invited to a gorgeous and terrible mystery. That's the limit of his responsibility, and he's achieving that astoundingly. But never doubt, too, what goes on behind the scenes when someone like Kabir is born on the earth. They may not have immediate impact, but the very fact that they're on the earth, the very fact that they are radiating presence, is a huge secret force. If you think that the Dalai Lama's influence on the planet is just what you see on TV or in his book sales, you haven't understood that him being here at this moment is radiating throughout the entire body of the creation and helping in invisible, amazing ways. So it's a double and mystery, isn't it? When the awakened one is born, they can be a beacon of awakening, but they can't awaken others except through inspiration. The other has to do the work. But on the other hand, their very presence is softening up the grace in the world to be open to revelation and teaching. It's a very amazing marriage of opposites also, isn't it?
Well, thank you for pointing us to the moon.
I'm trying. I hope I pointed in the right direction.
Thank
you, John. Thank you very much. The children of the light and the children of the darkness, one of the deepest mysteries. As a mentor during my Cambridge days used to say, God has no grandchildren. Enlightenment and the spiritual experience is a direct encounter. And even if you're Jesus Christ or Rumi or Kabir standing right next to you, they can't open your eyes. In the end, there's something inside all of us. They can inspire, they can message, they can preach, they can heal.
And the reason is obvious, Jim. I mean, when you really meditate on it, the reason is this, and this I think is the unanimous testimony of the mystics of love. The reason is that for some unknown and unknowable reason, God is wildly in love with you as you. So only you as you choosing God could possibly satisfy so extreme a sacred passion for you.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put.
And that is such a revolution in one's thinking and feeling when you get to that place, because then you realize I'm not allowed to have anybody else do the work for me, because God wants me, and God wants me to choose God. And there is no way out of that amazing revelation until I choose. And the experience of abandoned love fills every cell of my being. That's the choice.
Beautiful. Thank you, John. Then our last question will be from Vivian. Welcome, Vivian.
Vivian. Hey, Vivian.
Hello.
Hi, darling.
Hello, Vivian.
How are you?
Lovely to see your beautiful face.
Oh, thank you. I am glad to be here. I first experienced Andrew Harvey, when I was in Chartres in 2014, and we went to the Mystical Paris tour. And this, it's so funny that Jim mentioned Jacob wrestling with angels, because the paper that I wrote about it was on Delacroix.
Yes.
I can't say that word, but he's wrestling with angels. And I was everywhere. I dreamt about Jacob the whole time that we were walking the streets of Paris every day. We stayed on Rue Jacob. I mean, it was just, I was so embedded in that. But the reason that I went originally to be with you guys was I had this completely utter sadness about the sixth mass extinction. And you were talking about the animals and Kabir, and that's one thing in his work that's very real to me. You know, I think that that's the thing that he's talking about, and how horrific it is, what we're doing not only to the animals but to the entire, like, you know, Georgie said, the entire living planet. And I had such sadness that I was just flailing, just reaching for something. And I have found some peace with this going deeper and deeper into myself, and in this whole, searching process. But it is freaking painful. I'm sorry. And the thing that got me starting on this is an inconvenient truth. So it's very inconvenient. I'll just have to say, this whole thing has just been very inconvenient. My life has just completely been turned on end, and but it's wonderful. And the poem that I'm just using right now, and I would like for you to talk about, is the one that's more than anything else, I cherish at heart what in the world makes me live a limitless life. And that's the comfort that I'm getting from Kabir, and this whole notion of raking yourselves over the glass. I had that before I even came to this, and this is now I feel like it's salve on that broken glass skin. I feel like it's that I've done holotropic breath work, and I've felt the oneness, and you know what Linda was saying about the cellular structure, whatnot. When you have, I've felt it, and knowing that it's just, but trying to get to that comfort and for it to be a salve is what I'm trying to do, and maybe that's not the proper way to go about it, but it just seems
no, absolutely no, Vivian. What you need, my darling, is to remember at every moment your origin and your source through saying the name of God in the depths of your heart, just endlessly and repetitively, and to the point of idiocy. You think you're being completely...
Oh, I'm there. I'm point of idiocy.
Just stay there, and amazing mysteries will unfold. Just dwell in that remembering. And it's very beautiful that you chose that poem, because it's a poem about waking up to already living a divine human life by being in that room right now, listening to a friend talk about Kabir, being in that setting. You are already in the sacred world. It's all around you. It's foaming all around you. What it needs is your perception of it, your adoration of it, your gratitude for it to become central to your consciousness. And then your limited human fragile life reveals itself as an unlimited, deathless life foaming over. And that means that when you make food for a friend, it is like making food for all the people on the planet. That means when you reach out and touch your cat and cuddle your cat, you're cuddling every single animal. The whole of reality is present at that moment. That means when you go and make yourself a cup of coffee, you know who you're making yourself a cup of coffee for. You're making it for yourself and the beloved who's living inside you. This is fun. This is not horrific, right?
It is fun. That's exactly right. It's like, I kind of feel guilty how much fun I'm having, but the synchronicities are when the fun.
God,
really,
never feel
it's
guilty.
really, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, this is just so joyous. Yeah.
Yes, it is, because it's a love affair. It's a love affair with the invisible beloved that happens to live inside you and around you.
But the poem that that Georgie, you know, called forth with the crying, the blood of tears, that, you know, that's real too. You know, when it just...
He says the rivers of blood and the rivers of milk run side by side. And they're both real, and they're both sacred, totally sacred. The joy is totally sacred, and the agony is totally sacred. And they're worked in amazingly beautiful, ruthless ways by the beloved to work us in whatever way we need to be worked.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you, Vivian. It's good to see you again. I would love to have you back in Chartres. And
you're going to be sick of me. I'm coming for the whole summer.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I so enjoyed you. I so enjoyed
you. Yeah, I wrote something up about it on the forum about Kabir turned me to gold. So I'm going to be there for the whole...
Thank you, darling. Thank
53 days.
Beautiful.
Thank you for recognizing Kabir, because it's very important, I believe.
Yes.
Well, listen, we're going to draw it to a close now. Been a very rich discussion. I'm going to turn it over to Georgie in a moment, but I just want to note that next month I'll be taking up a book called The Way of the Bodhisattva by the great mystic Shantideva. Kabir lived in India in the 15th century, and Shantideva lived in India, was associated with the great Nalanda University in the 8th century. So we're going to have two great Indian mystics. And in some ways, you know,
Shantideva is
the perfect person to read after Kabir.
Yes.
And, you know, the Dalai Lama has said many times that the way of the Bodhisattva has taught him more about compassion than any other teacher he's had, and that he's read Shantideva many, many times and continuously through his life. So when we approach the way of the Bodhisattva in May and June, by Shanti Deva, we're approaching a work that was considered instantly to be a classic, as they would say, and has endured to the present time, and now has informed the life and really the benediction of possibly the most enlightened being on planet Earth in our time. So, and I want to thank Andrew, because it was Andrew who gave me the book. And I read it and have kept it by my side ever since. And so it's going to be a real pleasure and an honor to reflect on this great work a month from now. So Andrew, I love you, brother. And thank you for the depth of your, and it's just worth noting, everyone. In Andrew Harvey, we have one of the great mystics of our time. And I don't say that lightly. We have someone who's plumbed the depths of life. We have someone who's plumbed the depths of a spectrum of mystics like Kabir, and has done so in a way that has brought them into contemporary reality, as fractured and as confused as it is, and we are, with such a piercing clarity that we're all inspired. And so, Andrew, I just want to note that we're in the presence of a truly great mystic in your being. And it's going to be wonderful to have you in Chartres and then mystical Paris. If any of you haven't made your decision about Chartres or mystical Paris, now is the time. And if you have any financial difficulties, just send me an email. It's going to be a totally profound.
No, write to your president and ask him to pay for your mystery school. He wants your complete illumination and awakening.
Okay, Georgie, take us out.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Jim Van. You may have gotten Shanti Deva's book from Andrew, but I got mine from you.
The wine circulates.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before I ask you one big favor, I actually realized how much I love hearing Kabir through you. So maybe if you want to think about creating an audio file, just
yes, really I'd love to do this soon. Actually, I'm going to England to make a sing Kabir with Chloe. Actually, I did that last year and I loved it. So we're going to see if
I record it, because I think as much as I love it, I'm sure that there are some people who would love to not just read it in this amazing book, but also listen to it. So I thought the best way to finish these two wonderful presentations is by your voice and Kabir's words. And it was really hard to...
you choose, my darling, as the sacred feminine or holy woman.
The problem is, which is not a problem, I actually came to two. So being a hedonist I am, I'd like you to read both of them.
I will. I'm your slave.
Thank you. So the first one is page 26. And the second one, which you already read to us last time, but I just love it. And that's page 190. So 26 and 190.
Oh, I love this one. This is much less simple than it appears. Kabir is drunk on God's name, not from wine, not from drugs. Drink deeply from the cup of the name, and you'll be truly a God-drunk one. That truly is the essence of his instruction to us. Look, the name, the name, the name. It's a cup, it's got wine in it. Drink deeply, you become God-drunk. The process will continue vibrantly. And here is 190. Oh God, I love this one. This is this is really the key and the core of the book. This is the secret prayer at the heart of it all. Let there be your love, Lord, burning softly in every cell of my dying and transfigured body. By your wild and merciful grace, Lord of truth, turn me to gold, so I can love in perfect fullness you who loves in me. I love that so deeply, because it's really saying that the key to the transfiguration process is this abandoned love for love itself, and the hunger to turn up as love's fullest imaginable instrument, which means fundamentally surrendering yourself totally to love, to be possessed by love and used by love. Amazing.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for giving Kabir to us. Thank you for joining us. Can't wait to see you in France. And to our audience, see you in a month's time. All the very best, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew.
God bless you. My great pleasure. I love you all. God bless you. Good luck.